Good evening and welcome to the OPA Insurance webinar, Pharmacy at Risk, How to Safeguard Your Business from Common Threats. My name is Christopher Williams, Senior Manager of OPA Insurance Program. Today, we will examine various strategies that can assist pharmacists navigate and mitigate their operational risk. But before we dive into today's event, let's do some housekeeping. Please note that for your questions, these can be entered into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will provide responses during the Q&A section. At the end of the webinar, we will also be doing a random prize draw for a $50 gift card, Amazon gift card, and that's for persons who are remaining on the card on the webinar at the end of this session. So today's webinar is sponsored by Hub Ontario Limited, broker for the OPA insurance programs, the STORE program, cyber program, and PLI. Our co-moderator, presenter is Kim Stewart, and Kim oversees the OPA insurance program at Hub. Kim brings her 20 plus years of insurance industry expertise alongside a passion for demystifying insurance in her leadership of Hub's programs teams. Kim leads a team of 15 people across Ontario, providing commercial risk management services to numerous provincial and national associations and other affinity and nonprofit groups. Kim has developed and presented numerous webinars for provincial and national associations on topics such as professional liability, water damage mitigation, cyber risk in healthcare, and digital health risk exposures. As an associate professor at Humber College Insurance Management Program, Kim's enthusiasm extends to her sharing knowledge with students looking to enter the insurance industry. She's also a proud contributor to the Women's Insurance Cancer Crusade and Holland Bloorview Capes for Kids campaign. This evening, Kim has put together a great team of risk managers with expertise to guide us through today's webinar and discussions. And without further ado, I will now hand over to Kim to introduce our team for today and guide today's session. Kim.
Thank you very much, Chris, and I appreciate the introduction. I would like to say thank you so much to the OPA for inviting myself and my colleagues here from Hub. And it is always a pleasure to connect with the OPA and its members. As Chris said, I've been working with the OPA for a number of years, and Hub and OPA have a long-standing relationship we'll get into a little bit. Today, we are talking about operational risk exposures and solutions for pharmacy owners. Pharmacy owners, as members of the OPA, you have access to a myriad of opportunities to learn about your risks and how to be able to better protect them, but you're also wearing multiple hats. You are wearing a business owner, a pharmacy professional. At times, you're also handling HR and many other issues. Our intent here is to help pharmacy owners find ways to handle, to view their operational risks and ways to handle them, which in most cases do not provide any additional outlay of funds. We all know that we are in tight expense management world right now. And so our goal today is to help OPA members understand their risk and find solutions that they can do without any outlay of additional funds. So today I am joined by both Chun Chen and Brian Shanice from our risk services team. Chun, can I pass it over to you for a quick intro?
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Kim, for the introduction there. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chun Chen, and I'm from the Hub Risk Services team today to present some great topics for water damage mitigation and premises liability. Just a quick introduction about me. I come from the carrier side of the business, so I've been on the insurance company side doing risk management, helping our clients in a variety of industries from woodworking, manufacturing, commercial building owners, and food manufacturing, just to name a few. And I'm excited to be here tonight to present to everyone. So thank you, Kim.
Thanks so much, Chun. And Brian, over to you.
My pleasure. Thank you. And wonderful to be here. Brian Schnese, and I work within Hub's organizational resilience practice. It's a group focused on the enterprise security risk domains, but by professional background, I'm a former FBI special agent. I worked white collar crime in Los Angeles for a number of years, left the bureau and went to Target Corporation, led teams in their assets protection division for almost a decade. So think retail loss prevention and safety and security.
Great. Thanks so much, Brian. So our agenda for today, we're going to talk a little bit about Hub and the OPA and what we do. Then Choon's going to move on to water damage mitigation and slip, trip, and fall prevention. Brian's going to have some great information on robbery and burglary prevention. I'm then going to wrap it up and get into our cyber risk management at a highlight. And then we'll wrap it all up. And we are going to save a little bit of time for questions at the end if possible, because we really do like the opportunity. If we've got a bunch of minds here that we're happy to have you pick our brains. So Hub and the OPA. Hub has been the broker for the OPA for almost 15 years, but throughout that time period, it has been much more than just brokerage services. It's been a partnership. We've worked on risk management, advisory, and associated brokerage services for the OPA. We had an opportunity to help guide the OPA and its members through the very interesting times through the pandemic, whether it was risk management on wayfinding for testing, the vaccines, COVID testing, and things along those lines. And we really appreciated that opportunity so that we could continue to support the OPA members so that you could continue to support your community. Right now, the OPA program has three distinct aspects of it. We have a professional liability program for pharmacists, techs, interns, and students. And we know that more than 8,000 OPA members are familiar with that product. We also do pharmacy operating insurance for pharmacy owners. Hub has a very comprehensive program for pharmacy owners that includes everything from your standard property, equipment breakdown, and slip and fall for your casualty, but most importantly, key things like your entity professional liability, making sure that your operating entity has professional liability when it's named in a suit, expanded coverage for the spoilage of drugs and refrigerated vaccines when in the event that you have a mechanical breakdown. And then we also offer cyber insurance for pharmacy owners, and more pharmacy owners are reaching out to Hub, are asking for advice, and we spend a significant amount of time reviewing options with them so that they can feel more confident, as we know that the digital health exposures are rapidly increasing. And we know that pharmacy owners are connecting in various different ways, whether it's to FHOs or to hospital networks. Choon, I'll pass it over to you to start the discussion on the Hub risk services.
Perfect. Thank you, Kim. So before we dive into our great topics tonight, I'd just like to talk a little bit about our philosophy at Hub and in our services team. So as many of you know, as a commercial insurance broker, we play a very vital role in helping businesses achieve profitability, resiliency, and overall organizational vitality. And we help our clients by leveraging our expertise, resources, and risk management strategies. And this way, we help organizations optimize costs, mitigate risks, and drive sustainable growth. And that is exactly what we as Hub's risk services team is focused on, which is advising our clients on how to identify, quantify, and reduce risk through tailored solutions. Next, please, Kim. Great, thank you. And this slide is an illustration of the left of loss concept. And the point of the left of loss concept philosophy is to coach the concept that an organization or individual cannot necessarily control whether an event will occur, but we can control the potential impact that the event could have. And this concept is fundamental to resilience. And as an example, say workplace violence, for example, employers always want to stay left of violence and focus as much time and resource as possible on the prevention side and also on the response initiative as well. And we coach organizations to be aware of their risk environment and to plan, mitigate, and respond effectively to control for the consequences of the event to the extent possible. And with Hub, you guys are not only a client, but also a member partner, and we're here to support you with all of your risk management needs. Next, please. Water damage mitigation. So water damage claim is becoming more of a concern in managing property exposures, and it's very important to have plans and educations in place to manage the impact of water loss. And so this slide here, I'm just going to talk briefly about the different categories of water, the three main categories that you will run into. So clean water, obviously, water that are potable, that comes out of your tap or sink, and connected to your appliances and such. So water that does not pose a human hazard. Then you've got gray water, so again, potential human hazard, lightly contaminated, so rain runoffs or those that could be coming out of your toilet. And then lastly, the most hazardous type of water, which is black water. And this is any water that's been contaminated with bacteria, fungi, or any type of chemical. So think your sewer backup, river overflows, or gray water that has been sitting for a period of 48 hours or more. Next. And here are just some examples of potential sources of water leaks that can cause damage to your operations. Or externally, as we know, it's going to be rain, torrential downpours, or in the wintertime when we could have a warm spell where all the snow are melting at once. Again, runoffs and a potential water main break on the property. And internally, your water supply pipe, your HVAC system, toilets, water heater are very common, or a potential sewer backup as well. Next. So now we're going to talk about the ways that we can try to prevent a water loss from occurring. And before I get into this, I do want to say that we do understand as a team that most pharmacies are operated within a commercial plaza where you're not necessarily the owner of the unit itself. So some of the maintenance items and prevention techniques that I'm going to be talking about here will more than likely be used for you as a conversation started between yourself, the property management team, or the building owners themselves. Just still back there. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So the first one there, annual roof and drain inspection. So this is a very simple way to help mitigate water damage, because I have been on many properties where no one has been up to the roof for a couple of years, and I'm up there for the first time with the building owner, and we observed that the drains are clogged, it's obstructed, and there's extreme pooling of water on the roof, and that eventually leads to the water seeping through the roof covering and can cause a flood or a severe damage to the interior. And also, in addition to just the exterior of the building, it's always a good idea to check your windows and door frame caulking as well, just to make sure they're properly sealed, as any cracks or potentially, pinhole within those caulking can let in water. And the next one is HVAC maintenance, which is very important. And this is twofold. One, HVAC will provide you heat in the wintertime, so maintaining your HVAC system is very important, that you have adequate heating. I've seen catastrophic losses in the past where HVAC maintenance was not up to date, and when it became below zero, a pipe burst where it required a complete overhaul of the interior, brand new electrical, brand new plumbing, brand new drywall, and furniture as well. So it's very important to maintain our HVAC. And also we use our HVAC for AC as well, so making sure all of our drain lines for the HVAC system is properly cleared and not obstructed. And next one is going to be hot water tanks. So you'll probably, I feel like most pharmacy will have at least a hot water tank within their unit. And hot water tanks tend to have a lifespan between 9 to 12 years. And when they reach that point in their life, it's always a good idea to consider replacing it, because that's when they start to show signs of corrosion. And if that's left to just continue to corrode, it could really potentially lead to a major flood of the unit. And then lastly, inspection of valves and hoses in the unit. It's making sure all of your plumbing connections to your sinks, to your appliances are properly connected. There's no corrosion or no weird bends or kinks in the pipe, as again, that could potentially lead to pinhole leaks that is very hard to detect and can cause severe damage to your property. And we always recommend to check all your hose fittings and connections semi-annually, every 6 months is a good time. And then some other areas I want to touch on the prevention side is if you have floor drains within the unit, making sure that that's not obstructed, making sure it's not clogged, and making sure it's kept clear so that if there is a water leakage within the unit, it has a clear path to flow towards the drain. And if you have any sort of sump pump in your unit, making sure that's tested quarterly as well, making sure it's working, because the last thing you want is a rainstorm to come in and the sump pump is not working and now you have a little flood within the unit. It's also a good idea to consider if you have a sump pump to have it connected to some sort of backup power in the event that there's a power outage in a building. And if there's a rainstorm, your sump pump will still be working. And also looking for unusual dampness on walls, condensation, or black discoloration, which is usually an indication of mold on your wall. It usually tells you that you may have a potential leak behind the wall somewhere, and if you see that, making sure that gets checked out as soon as you can. And then also spills, if there's any type of spill within the unit, whether it be small or large, it does not matter. It's always a good idea to clean it up as soon as you can because water will always follow gravity in the path of least resistance. So it could really reach into little nooks and crannies that you wouldn't expect and cause a lot of issues down the line if it's just left unchecked. And then lastly, water detection devices. There are many on the market and there are many different solutions. There's even ones that are connected to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth that will notify you through an app or through your phone remotely. And this is a good consideration to install them on your valves and your fittings to your sink, toilet, or any appliances that you use within your operation as well, because it would basically give you an early warning, and that way you can prevent a major severe water loss. So, and here are some items that we always recommend to have on site as part of your response kit. And it's very important that your staff is trained and aware on how to use some of the equipment in a response kit during a potential water leak. And also, in addition to your response kit, it's always important to have someone that is designated as the leader, the lead program, we call it, to respond during a water leak. And this person is basically responsible for activating and implementing the water damage mitigation strategy that you have as part of your emergency preparedness program, and making sure that this individual is familiar about the responsibility of others on the team, and who they will be contacting as well as part of their response. And this is not going to always be possible, but if the building management or the building owner, if possible, provide a chart of the valve locations within the unit or the main shutoffs for the unit itself, making sure that your program leader that will respond during a water damage situation is familiar with the valve chart and location so that they're able to respond adequately in a timely manner to try to minimize the damage as much as possible. Next. And here are just the 4 main key components that should be included in a water damage mitigation plan. I want to draw everybody's attention to just maybe the last 2 points there, which is, again, key internal personnel and key external personnel. Like I previously mentioned, it's important to designate a program response leader, and a person should be familiar with the water damage mitigation plan policy that you have, familiar with where all the valve locations are, know who to contact during the emergency, whether it be building maintenance personnel or a third-party water remediation contractor, or even yourself as the pharmacy owner. Next, please. And then these are the 3 main objectives of a water damage mitigation plan. Again, we will always do our best to try to prevent it from happening. So preventative maintenance is going to be key in preventing a water damage loss. And if there is a loss, obviously the 2 last points there, it leads back to your response planning, making sure the lead person knows their responsibility during the event, knows when to activate and implement the response plan, and knowing who to contact during an emergency. Next. And now we'll move into premises liability, or otherwise known as slip, trip, and falls. Next. So here are some of the common hazards. I'm sure everybody is fairly familiar with some of the ones I've listed here. Damage, uneven walking surfaces, extremely common. I've been to many commercial buildings and properties where I'm doing a walkthrough with the owner or the tenant, and we typically see floors that are cracked, damaged, or missing. It's always a good idea to have these repaired as soon as possible. And if that's not possible, then either put some sort of tape over it to prevent it from posing as a slip or trip hazard, or at least a high colored tape to at least draw people's attention to it while they are walking within the unit. Another area that we typically run into is floor rugs or mats. They tend to curl on the edges when they age. So making sure that you tape it down around the edges so that it's not curling, and that could pose as a trip hazard. And also that the mats are not overly worn due to age, making sure they're not damaged or has holes in them, as that again poses as another potential trip hazard. And mats should always be installed at every main entrance or areas where there's high foot traffic, and also areas where there is a change in walking surfaces. So for example, your client is walking from the exterior, it's going to be concrete sidewalk into smooth ceramic tile interior within the store. So it's always a good idea to have mats there as well. And lighting is another key area where we tend to see issues as well. So just making sure your bulbs are all lit, or if you identify spots within your unit where you feel like it's not adequate, the lighting, so considering installing another light there to making sure it's nice and bright. And also, if you have any stairs or ramps or incline within the units, you always want to make sure that the stairs have at least one handrail. Make sure that each of the stair steps themselves are equipped with a grip tape, as that will give people using the staircase more traction, especially during the winter time or during the fall or spring where it's raining. And also incline walkways or ramps, whether it's in the pharmacy where your staff is working or within the guest walking area, always making sure that those have grip tape as well, because your staff could potentially come in during the winter and their boots are wet and they walk over the ramp and there's no grip tape. They could potentially slip. With the grip tape, it gives them much more traction. And also, poor housekeeping is another area where we see a lot of problems, and it could be anything from clutter, hoses, extension cords, or garbage or boxes that hasn't been taken out for the day yet. And I personally have tripped over extension cords before as well, as I'm doing a walkthrough. So making sure your walkways are kept clear at all times is very important as well. And then lastly, if you have any spills or wet areas, I know pharmacies could get pretty busy at certain hours of the day, and if you can't get to cleaning it right away, then having some sort of signage as a warning to people that are coming in that there's a potential wet spot on the floor themselves. Next. And here are just some other common hazards. As I previously mentioned, both pharmacies are going to be in a commercial plaza, so you guys will not be doing your own snow removal. The first point there about snow removal program really applies to a situation where either yourself or your pharmacy staff is doing snow shoveling or salting in front of the doors and sidewalks. It's always a good idea to document those down, as that will help you in the event that you have to go to court for a potential slip and fall claim. And that's just a way to show the courts that you are doing your due diligence when it comes to snow removal, in addition to the plaza contractor doing their snow removal activity as well. Inadequate maintenance of exit signs and emergency lighting equipment is very common to see. I go into a lot of commercial buildings where the exit signs are broken, or when I hit the test button, the emergency lighting units do not light up. And this is very important that you maintain it. And it is required to be maintained on an annual basis, with any repairs needed addressed as well. And it's very important because a broken emergency light or exit sign can lead to panic during an evacuation. For example, you have a power outage in a building and everyone's in a rush to get out. If your exit sign is broken and your emergency lighting units are not lit, then it's people trying to escape in pitch blackness, and that can lead to a lot of panic. And again, people could be tripping or tripping over one another, and it could really lead to a catastrophe there. And when it comes to accessibility, think about the demographic that is coming to your pharmacy as well. So age, or those with vision impairments, or limited physical ability. Like I said before, installing mats where walking surfaces change from, say, a grippy material such as a concrete sidewalk to a smooth tile, making sure your mats are in good condition and installed at high foot traffic areas. Next. And as I've highlighted previously in the previous 2 slides, some of the prevention techniques, these are some more prevention ideas. Document regular inspection facilities. This is something that can be integrated into your, say, your morning open routine, where a staff member goes around the pharmacy, making sure the floors are in good condition, mats are in good condition, making sure your receiving area is also in good condition so that when the delivery person comes by, they're not exposed to a potential trip hazard. And also, again, maintaining of your emergency and life safety equipment. Your exit signs and emergency lighting equipment is very important, as that can really aid in the safe evacuation of your guests during an emergency. And again, if you do any type of snow removing or salting on your own, it's a good idea to lock that down as well.
And can I ask, many of our OPA members and pharmacy owners, they lease, but there's
Yeah.
always that threshold. And the threshold is an area where, they're coming off the street, and, whether they're coming in or they're coming out, could be an area. Do you recommend anything when you're maintaining your removal logs or snow or floor care logs, and actually making reference to threshold when it comes to there, so that, in the event of a loss, they can pull that back, and it can really help in the event of adjusting a claim?
Sorry, what do you mean by threshold there?
Just that the main area when you're walking in and out of the door, it's that threshold area. I know that one of the things we've been talking about in the past is when you're talking about, you're maintaining your logs or your floor clear logs, threshold reviewed. So when you open up the door, sometimes there's ice or there's snow or there's areas, you're taking a look at it and you're clearing it off occasionally so that there isn't a slips, and it helps in the event of somebody saying, well, whose space is this?
Right.
The landlord's space, or is it the tenant's space?
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a good idea to identify, like what you mentioned, the threshold. Typically I find that tenants will mostly clear snow, obviously in the front entrance and a little bit down the sidewalk of where typically the guest would be coming into the store. So just identifying all of those areas. So if it's sidewalk, if you shovel the sidewalk in front of the main entrance and a little bit further down as well, making that clear within the log is a good idea as well, because that really helps to clarify. Yep.
Great.
And lastly, we have lots of resources that we can provide to help with slip and falls mitigation. And as an example there, you could see that is one of the resources there, which is a checklist that can be used, that can be implemented into your daily operation. And an important part of trip and fall mitigation is also incident investigation and prevention measures. And it's important to document your slip and fall incidents if there is a claim put through, and to thoroughly investigate it so that we can learn from it and try to prevent that from happening in the future. And we, as a risk services team, we can also provide safety talk or training for slip and fall prevention and training on incident investigation as well. And with that, thank you for your time, and I hope everyone took something away from this and used it as a conversation starter with your internal staff, building owners, or property management personnel. And I now pass it on to my colleague, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be taking the mic here. In this 10-minute briefing or so, I have the pleasure of providing you an update on current robbery and burglary trends in Canadian pharmacies with an Ontario focus. I also intend to bring to you some practical guidance that you can take back to your teams. And I just want to start by setting the table with a bit of some of the key threat trends here on the next slide. And if I were giving this briefing, I don't know, 18 months ago, this slide would look so vastly different. Many of you remember the rampant and very serious uptick in pharmacy robberies in Ontario just a short while ago, was very problematic. And thankfully that's changed. So in the Toronto area, down 82% to last year, which is incredible news. On the insurance claims side of things, we're seeing the very same thing. We're seeing evidence of this decrease as well. And that's great news for sure. This is really incredible. It's also due, in our opinion, in large part to this broad implementation of time-delayed safes. And many of you will be familiar with those devices. I know the OPA was quite outspoken in their advocacy for this initiative, instrumental in influencing what I think is a great win. And still, this threat does persist. So there are recent incidents. There's a couple of things that I thought were perhaps insightful to call out. York Regional Police highlighting a recent incident. It was 5 teenagers. The suspects did enter with handguns, so it was an armed attempt. They had demanded access to the narcotics safe. What we know is that they were unsuccessful in opening that. So we don't have details, but again, I think circumstantially, or at least that points again to the efficacy of those, perhaps the efficacy of those time-delayed safes. Different than robbery is burglary. So another incident in Hamilton, there was a target or there was a string that was targeted at pharmacies. A little bit different though, not after the narcotics or the drugs. Really, we're targeting cash registers in the POS. So something to just keep in mind. Thought I'd provide a little bit of a color before we jump in. So on the next slide, I just wanted to start taking us through a few other elements of managing this risk really well. Kim, if you don't mind just moving the slides forward there for a second. Thank you. Also wanted to call out and highlight that many of the controls that I'm just going to discuss briefly here are measures you can take that do not actually have a financial cost to them. These cost you time, perhaps some effort, but don't necessarily have to have a price tag associated with them. So I just want to start with prevention and deterrence. Those are two different things, sometimes conflated, but things you can consider before a robbery happens. Obviously, carrying a limited quantity of narcotics where this makes sense in your business, or controlled drugs on site can limit the negative impacts. Posting signage indicating that you have limited quantities, or even that you have that time-delayed safe in place, or that the property is being monitored. Those are all passive deterrent efforts, but they work. Like I said, I worked retail loss prevention for 10 years, and I can share more about that. One thing I encourage retail and pharmacy owners to do is just think like a robber. And there's a lot of guidance out there conceptually to help you do that. Crime prevention through environmental design, or CPTED, is a series of best practices or industry standards. And your Ontario chapter has excellent resources in this space. But essentially, the principles just sort of center around creating natural surveillance environments or access control, concepts that help passively either deter, prevent, or capture good evidence. So things that make your pharmacy less attractive than other buildings. So without going into those too deeply, keeping exterior and interior areas well lit and maintained, controlling the flow of traffic through your building, keeping the windows clear of obstructions, viewing access, right? So that suspicious people can be seen outside, or others can see into the pharmacy and what's happening. This is also really helpful in gathering evidence, right? When you're trying to grab the license plate or see what direction they went. Of course, installing a good security system is an important aspect. But again, some of those impressions of control, I've worked in stores that didn't have security systems or video systems, but simply had signage that was acting as an impression of control or deterrent. So those are a couple of ideas. And sticking on the theme in the next slide with cameras, and also in the vein of things that don't necessarily cost you any money. When you do have cameras, I know from experience that there can be a lot of issues here. Poor quality camera shots, analog versus digital cameras, can lead to frustration. And you can think or feel, comforted by their existence, but they may not deliver for you. And here's what I mean. When you need the evidence related to an incident like this, you need the detail. And like in the left example, this camera angle is trying to accomplish too much, right? You've got all that space, a whole lot of Christmas tree. And so again, does that produce what you want it to? Are you seeing the detail that you need in order to pass that on to law enforcement, for example? In the right-hand side, is that exterior shot going to get you the license plate detail that you might need to, break open that case? And I won't belabor that, but there's a couple more examples on the next slide here. Just again on how angles are trying to cover too much or might be obscured, right? You might have promotional or signage that is in the way, and all of a sudden, it went up, but you didn't realize that it's blocking, your entire counter shot, or that there's stuff stacked that, could be obscuring faces. So the takeaway here is really, have you reviewed your camera shots lately? Again, it doesn't cost a dime. You think about also what time of day it is, or reviewing those shots during different times of day. I see washout as a common effect, and that can take a great camera angle and make it useless. Another aspect of having a surveillance system is just being ready and able to produce that video that you captured if law enforcement officials ask for it. And that might be tricky or out of your hands entirely, depending on your ownership or renting of a tenant building, but it's something to consider because time can be of the essence, and those things aren't always easy to produce. So moving on here, as we stick within that preparedness side of things, we are typically handling less cash currently, but this still is a major target, as I mentioned in the first part of the briefing. So establishing the good handling processes and the bank deposit procedures is worth it. Perhaps you're providing specific guidance to those employees who are responsible for that on where to park to make sure that it's within security camera range, or where to enter and exit so that they're have the least chance of being intercepted or something like that. So just planning through little things like that. For high risk transactions or deliveries that you're expecting, maybe you're also thinking about a simple thing like using cones to block the preferred parking spot, and again, to keep them within camera range. Following good opening and closing procedures is a basic thing. Ensuring that you've got at least 2 employees that are working whenever possible. Also, I learned this firsthand while working in retail loss prevention. Greeting customers can make such a huge difference. We used to direct our store security teams to start by providing great guest service. You wouldn't think that's the first direction to your security team, but here's the thing: customers really like the attention, and robbers don't, right? Criminals don't want to be engaged, and we know that there's a deterrent effect to that. And also it's good guest service, right? So your employees should know what to look for. Surprisingly, the most common disguise hasn't changed in 100 years. Still hat, sunglasses, hoodie. These are things that robbers think keep them from, being identified. And then I really want to focus on this next one, but making this connection with your local police department and posting that number all over phone extensions within the store or wherever your employees need it is a big deal. Having those great law enforcement partnerships can really also, not many think about it this way, but can also give your employees a feeling of support, and also that you as the leader are taking this risk seriously. I've encountered organizations that experience turnover because their employees didn't feel safe or didn't think that their company was taking this seriously, right? Felt that they were sort of alone and unsupported. So even just having them by provides a soft level of employee retention. I mean, it certainly supports your efforts in that, and that's something we're all striving for. Locals can also provide great intelligence on what's happening in your area, the latest crime trends, if there's something to be aware of. And some I know will even agree if you ask them and if they have the bandwidth to include you or your store in their daily patrol routes. So again, lots of benefits to establishing those connections. And lastly, here on this side, just having a plan. So all the things that I'm mentioning here could belong in writing in some sort of procedure plan. At the very least, could be discussed with your employees on hire and throughout the year. So the other piece of having a plan is exercising that, and so that gets to the training aspect, and I think that's an obvious one. So I'll move to the next slide here. Some thoughts on how to respond when a robbery is taking place. So during the robbery, and the theme here is just keeping your employees and people above all safe. Staying calm, avoiding direct eye contact. You don't want your employees making sudden movements if they need to move or to reach, indicating to the robber that what you're doing and why announcing what you're doing is also advisable. Only speaking when spoken to, and keeping it real short and smooth. Giving the robbers exactly what they ask for, letting them know what you intend on, or what you intend, that you intend to comply with their demands. Again, these things can de-escalate and ensure that things don't go south. Asking for clarification if they don't understand what the robber is telling them to do. Activating the alarm is an obvious yes, but only if your employees can do that secretly or if they feel safe in doing that. And again, in the same vein, calling police as soon as possible, but only if it's safe to do that. I remember this from my FBI days too, being a good witness is just as important as taking action or not taking action. So again, a discussion with employees on what it means to be observant could make all the difference. What was their height, weight? What were they wearing? Did they have accessories? Were they wearing gloves? What did their shirt say? What hair color and facial features? What did their voice sound like? Did they have an accent? Was there a weird scar or an interesting a limp? Left-handed, right-handed? These are all things that matter. How many people were there? Where did they place their hands? You can see in the far right there, where they place their hands are also where they can leave their fingerprints. So again, these little things, perhaps in the moment of stress and disruption, you might not notice, but you'd be surprised if what people can remember. Lastly, just sort of bringing this section to a close here. In the wake of a robbery, you enter into this sort of recovery phase. And the first priority is obviously immediately, taking care of anyone who might be injured and securing your pharmacy building. Closing and locking that door will prevent the robber from re-entering. That's happened before. And it can also help keep your employees and then potential witnesses that are within the building from leaving. Again, activating the alarm if you haven't already, calling the police first, and then your supervisor. Maybe those on the call would disagree with me there, but because I'm sure there are some who would love to say, no, I'm the first call. But generally, time is of the essence, right, in these situations, and police do have a significant role to play. A couple other things that we would advise, just not from an evidentiary standpoint, not discussing the details of the robbery amongst staff or witnesses. The human memory is impressionable and accepts suggestions. And so again, comparing notes with others might unintentionally bias them or even sort of quash a piece of evidence that might be needed. So ideally, you'd have everyone sort of write down their own details or separate until police. And police will take the lead in this. They'll be familiar with what to do. This isn't like you have to figure this out, but these are just things to think about in advance and perhaps talking points with your team. Yeah, I would say that another couple things here. Police, they will help, but consider neighboring stores, or if you're in a shared tenant space, just what footage might be available or other witnesses might there have been that you can be aware of. And then I think the more important one, in my opinion, at the very end here is just be ready to support your staff. And that might be That might be with counseling, some sort of crisis counseling resource that you use. It might be a lot of team meetings. It might be space and at least direction on, showing up for work, what's going on. So communication can make a difference here. Even communicating with those who weren't there but have heard, and those who are concerned, and family members. All of these considerations could and should realistically be found in some sort of plan or playbook, like I mentioned. An emergency action plan is something that many pharmacies use to house their procedures and their plans like this. I did want to point out OPA has developed a fantastic written resource for you on this subject. Hub reviewed that and provided input on it as well, specific to robbery and burglary risk. So with that, I'll close. I hope this quick threat briefing's been insightful to you. I appreciate your interest and engagement in the topic for sure.
Thanks, Brian. And so as we move into our last topic for tonight's conversation, it is cyber risk management. Cyber risk could be its own webinar, and we've been working with the OPA to actually see if we can develop something later on in the year specifically on cyber risk, as we do know how important it is, and there's a lot of detail that could go into it. But at a really high level, we're here today to talk about the various different components that can go into risk management. When people think cyber and a cyber attack, they immediately think to either that's my IT jobs problem and I've outsourced that, or I've got a third party and I'm dealing with somebody who has all of my systems, all of my data is there, not my responsibility. And so we strongly encourage OPA members to take a bit of a stronger interest in this. At times, it will be the third party's responsibility. At times, it will maintain the owner of the data, which is the pharmacy owner's responsibility. And so it's key that in the event of a loss, we take a look at the opportunity to get your IT operations or your systems back up and running, but at the same time, protecting the data that you have. And more often than not, when we're talking to OPA members, they're like, well, I've got these firewalls, we've got high top security. And after all, in all of these things you see here in front of you, that is physical security. There are no other things here. And in your technical controls, everything else, and everybody can read all of these, everything else here is additional items that you can bring in to be a part of your cyber risk management toolkit. So as I just said, cyber risk goes beyond your basic cybersecurity. We encourage OPA members to take a holistic view, which means we ask you to take a look beyond just your systems into cybersecurity training your employees, because human error is one of the top causes of cyber losses. So training your employees in when to click and what not to click, certain links. We go on here to payment and transfer protocols. At times, cyber crime losses, in other words, you receive an update from a vendor and the vendor's email seems incredibly legit, and it says that there's a change in their wiring information or their account information. So the next time you send them an EFT, it goes to this account instead of the original account. Without engaging in some payment and transfer protocols, which includes calling your contact and confirming and reconfirming, maybe with more than one person, that this is the new account number, mitigates any potential for a phishing or social engineering incident. We also encourage OPA members to seek expert advice. And again, seek advice beyond the one group of individuals that you've kind of tasked with protecting. You can create this business continuity plan and review it with your IT staff and to support, to say, in the event of a loss, what would we do? And actually almost act it out. Who would we call? Where would we go to it? And I always like to use my good old Ghostbusters line for anybody who remembers the who are you going to call? Review local breach forensic contractors. Find out who you could connect with in the event of a loss. More often than not, really good breach forensic contractors are already on a retainer with insurance companies. So in the event that there is maybe an outage that's affecting more than one group, you want to make sure that you've already contacted somebody and you have a name that you can reach out to and ask, in the event if I had a loss, would you be able to talk to me, or would you have a queue of different people that you'd have to go through in order to be able to get some support and advice? We encourage OPA members to think about their cyber risk and reach out to our OPA team at Hub if they have questions. Our team is well versed in helping answer those, and we look forward to future operations and future presentations with the OPA to discuss this in more detail. So throughout our sections of our program today, whether it's water mitigation, slip, trip, and fall, and robbery and burglary, or cyber, we've all kind of come through these same 3 points. First of all, review your policies. Review your opening guidelines for a slip, trip, and fall. Review your walkthrough procedures to be checking and seeing for any water damage. Assessing exposures. Do you have those floor drains that need to be cleared? Do you have those floor mats that you know are getting a little bit older? When was the last time you really talked with your IT team about potential exposures? And then educate and train. To Brian saying, have a plan and then execute the plan, exercise it, have some test runs through it to make sure that the plan that you have in place makes sense and that it's accessible, whether it is a water safety, water damage mitigation plan, slip and trip, fall, check sheet, a robbery and burglary prevention plan, or a cyber risk plan, that you're familiar with it and that you know where it is, and that your team as a group can go through and become more familiar with it as well. So as promised, we want to be able, we can hold some time for some questions here. We do know that, we really appreciate people taking time today. And Chris, I want to leave it over to you. Have there been questions posted or other questions that you wanted to bring up for today?
Yes, so there is a question in the Q&A. So this question is, how often do you recommend a full assessment or quality assurance of risk discussed today?
Well, I think that we have various different risks that we're looking at here. I'd love to ask Chun on your side, how often, because I think we have water damage, taking a look at water damage, doing a walkthrough, taking a look and thinking about slip, trip, and fall. How often would we recommend, pharmacy owners looking through these risks?
Yeah, I think, reviewing your policies every couple of years is always good, especially when it comes to your, say, for example, water mitigation response program and plan. It's always good to review that policy maybe every 1 or 2 years, because you may want to update, who are going to be your contacts, external contacts, building management, building owner, or third-party contractor. And even from just like a walkthrough standpoint of the operation itself, like as I mentioned, slip and fall, you could do that daily as part of your morning opening routine. Quick walkthrough of the space that you're working in, floors in good condition, mats are in good condition. Or when it comes to water damage mitigation, making sure your valves, your pipes, your fittings, plumbing fittings are in good condition, no signs of corrosion and such. And we recommend doing that every 6 months. So periodic checks every quarter or every 6 months is always a good idea.
Brian, anything to add on, review of burglary and robbery prevention?
Well, I think, any policies or plans that you have in writing should be looked at, at least annually and updated to ensure. I think also near misses or recent headlines or scary things that are happening in the world around your employees are also a great time to capitalize on this. So if something's happened, it makes for a great opportunity to revisit, to bring this up in daily or morning training or a discussion. In terms of an assessment of your building, I think, asking your local law enforcement if they wouldn't walk through that building once a year is a really good idea. So those are a couple of thoughts on my end.
Great. And from a cyber perspective, I'd love to jump off on Brian's comment, because when you hear about these cyber attacks, whether it's at a hospital or it's a larger medical clinic, or even things that are not associated with the healthcare space, stop and pause and ask your IT support, the third parties that you're working with, that you've outsourced that to. If that happened, walk me through what it would look like for me. Because I think those are the types of things that you want to be able to be familiar as part of your emergency preparedness plans. Chris, anything else on your end?
No, there's nothing here in the Q&A section.
Great.
Not sure if anyone else has any question, but what I will do, I just put our email contact information in the chat. So if there's any questions, any follow-up questions, you can reach out to myself or to Kim at any time, and we will redirect your questions to the appropriate person, and we will certainly provide you with a response at a later time. And as promised, we will do a random draw for the, let's call it the gate prize of $50. It's an Amazon gift card, and just bear with me a second that we get the names that's currently there. And in the meantime, is there anything else you want to add, Kim or Brian?
I think we want to really say thank you very much to the attendees who came tonight, and all of those who also take some time and review this on the recording. Hub remains dedicated to supporting the OPA and its members. We really value the opportunity to come and work with you, and supporting OPA members and our clients is our top priority. We know that these are challenging times, and I think the key thing we really wanted to focus on today was the fact that the majority of the things that we brought forward are not additional costs to an OPA member. It gives you an opportunity to improve your risk, which can make your lives easier and try to prevent losses so you have less downtime and you can keep up and running as best as you can. So thank you again for the opportunity, and we really appreciate it.
Okay, and while we're waiting on the name, the winner, I just want to thank everyone for attending this webinar. We certainly hope that you learn more about the various risk exposure of pharmacies and how to take the appropriate steps to mitigate these risks. And as I said earlier, if you have any additional questions or require clarification, please feel free to reach out to myself or Kim. And again, thanks to Kim and the team for this evening's presentation, and for Hub for sponsoring another great event. And we look forward to having many more. We do have a gift card winner, and it's Ratana. So I'll put your name in the chat, and congratulations, Ratana.
Great. Ratana, if you could put you've got my email address, and you can reach out to Chris. And Chris, if you want to secure some contact information, pass that over. We'll get that over to them via email.
Thank you.
Great.
And again, thank you everyone for joining, and we appreciate your support at OPA. Thank you, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody. Be well.
Everyone, bye.